Hello, so I'm back. I have washed her off, and so I popped her under heat for a little while just to get some lift on her. And then I have just, so first of all, I combed out all the tip outs. Because if you don't brush them all out first, then I find that when you wash it, you have the knots in there, which is hard. So I make sure it's all combed through first. And then I've just conditioned her and then towel dried her and brought her back in. And then I've just mixed up my colour. Now I use Gold Roll colour, and to be honest with you, the formulas are quite irrelevant because she's so warm as a block that I basically mixed up the colour to like mimic her natural. But for a real person, I would like never use this colour unless they had like warm brown hair. So in real life, I generally use like 7NA, which is natural ash. There's a 5NA, there's a 9NA, and I generally mix them. It's so easy. They are acidic demi-permanents, and I use them with 3%, leave them on like 10 to 15 minutes. So for the purpose of today, I've actually mixed a 6 BP, which is brown pearl, with a little bit of 7G, which is gold. Again, like, you don't really need to worry because I would say that I'm never going to use that again, right? So, first of all, what I'm going to do is, if I was doing a client and I was happy with the hairline and the face frame, I comb that out first, so I leave that out. So if you don't really want to put in a face frame and then go and root shadow it, because like then they're going to have roots, aren't they, around the front. So what you want to do really is leave that out. There are some other ways that I do it, like I will tap sometimes on top, I'll use a different colour, and they're the sorts of things that I like more variety on some of my foiling tutorials, because there's quite a few different ways to melt. So I'm just going to do like the most straightforward today. So I'm just going to put her back into the middle parting that we worked with straight away, like that. And so I'm going to work from the bottom up. Now I usually will do this at the backwash. I don't usually do this at the chair. And I use a big brush, and obviously it just depends how much you want to blend her hair. So some of my clients, we will do more of a tap, so more like I'd say half an inch. If my client wants it a little bit deeper, I might stretch that down a little bit more. On the whole, I find that my clients don't want a big root, which is what I was saying in part 1. And then I just use a wet brush. So I've got all her hair from when I brushed her out. I just use a wet brush and just gently comb over those bits. But where I'm using a demi, an acidic demi, but with 3%, it's quite thick, which is why I quite like it, because it stays in place. So I sort of paint it where I want it to go and then just give it a light blend. I really think that colour melting is where you truly customise the client's hair. I think when you put foils in, no matter how hard you blend them, I don't feel that the blend is always ever as good as a colour melt, because when you when you black comb and then you try and feather up, I don't know if anybody else does this, but you put like a lot of effort into that back comb, and sometimes it can still not look as seamless. But then also you can sometimes end up with like some little harsh bits. But also when you feather colour, so when you get bleach and you like feather upwards, what happens is that you get warm bits, because if the bleach is on, like for, if you put less bleach on something, it lifts less. So what you can find is even though you're doing a gradient, so you're putting the bleach on and maybe flicking it up or feathering it, where you've got less saturation, I just find that sometimes it can go warmer. Which is, again, is fine because it's a way of blending, but it's just my personal preference is to saturate all the way through and then add the additional blend. And I also don't have any issues with when my clients come back. It's not like everything's faded out or whatever. It's still really seamless. So I know, because sometimes people say, oh, it doesn't last. Like, I just have never had that problem. So again, tried and tested. I know lots of different techniques, or I might switch to air touch. It depends on the consultation, but I just find that melting tends to give the clients the more longevity and a really nice result. So I put that on and then I just blend it in, and then I'm going to move around to the other side. So I haven't done the face frame at all. And then for my toner, I think I was saying, like, with the head blocks, I always like to have a little bit of an experiment or go for something that I don't usually use. I've actually used the Goldwell glosses. I've mixed up an 8 with clear. I mix clear into all my toners anyway, but I thought I'd go for an 8, which is one of their newer ones, which is 8GKP. I maybe could have gone for a 9. She's quite light. I think an 8 will be all right. And you'll see why that I don't usually do this at the chair as well. So the glosses are runny. They're like a bit like water. So I find that it's much better to do them at the backwash. And that's why I do the roots like this. I'm always holding the hair up and then laying it backwards, because I just get my client to sit up at the backwash. I go through just like different things. Sometimes I bring them back to the chair and then put the roots on and then tone at the backwash, but then you're moving them around. I just found that this is the best way. So in total, I mixed up 15 grams of the Goldwell, so 10 grams of the 6BP and 5 grams of the 7G, but remember, I probably wouldn't use that. And then with double 3%, and that's all I've needed. So I don't use a ton of product either on my root shadows. Sometimes I'm using between 10 and 15 grams. And what I find is that then I will just like blend with the wet brush, but then in like different directions rather than just down, so that the product has sort of moved around. When I've done this sort of sectioning, I tend to just brush out to the side. And so this is where it gets messy. My white trainers are not going to thank me for this. Then when I've done my toner, on, and then I just blend upwards with the brush. The toners are just pretty runny. Just blend it in section by section. I comb it all back, because what I find otherwise is that then, because it's a bit jelly-like, you can fling it all over the client a little bit. So making sure it all falls back. That's why it's so important to have the hair like knot free before you do it, because I find that then once you put the colour on, if you're trying to get the knots out, like, and your client's laying back with the colour on, I always find that you risk flinging it in their eyes if you're being a bit too aggressive. So it's nice to make it all knot free. So I've gone, spin around, as far as the face frame. I've just left the face frame out. So I'm going to section. So just blending it all in together. And obviously all this time, the roots have been on probably for about 5 minutes. So I add the clear so that the toner can stay on the hair a little bit longer. Because what you don't want to do is put the roots on, put the toner on, and then the toner takes in like 5 minutes and the roots aren't done. So you want to make sure that you're using product where the development times are synchronised. So by adding clearing to the ends of the colour, it means that I can give it a longer working processing time, meaning that the roots are developed. I'd rather over process the roots because it doesn't really matter, because I do a shorter development time anyway. I just would rather the toner didn't grab. So I get to the front, and this is just like a personal preference. I then say, Alexa, timer for 10 minutes. I make sure it's all blended, covered and saturated. And then I do their hairline. So obviously then, I mean, it only gives a couple of minutes difference, but sometimes I put a different colour on the hairline. Sometimes I'm doing different taps. If their hairline is porous, then I give it 5 minutes and then put it on. So I really do mix it up. There isn't like one set way. Making sure that's all in there. And by putting the root shadow off, like behind the face frame, it's going to make the face frame pop even more. Oh, look, I don't do that to my clients. Yeah, obviously their head's back, so it makes it a little bit easier. And for the toner, I mixed up 40 mils. I probably could have used a little bit less. So I make sure that's all saturated. Just a tiny little bit left, so make sure that that's all blended through, and that's it. So when she's off in 8 minutes, I will wash her, style her, dry her, and then I will show you all the results. Okay, right, thank you everyone, bye.